There are moments in life when everything turns on a single reaction. One sharp word, one rash reply, one instant of anger that cannot be undone. These moments test the depth of our discipline. The Stoic understood this well. To them, self-control was not just a virtue, it was strength, it was freedom. The one who can govern his response does not live at the mercy of chance. He shapes his own direction. To overreact is to hand away your power. It is to let chaos decide your course, to give your emotions the reins over your reason. But Stoic discipline is not about suppression. It is about mastery. Not passivity, but precision. The goal is not to feel less, but to choose more wisely. In a world that glorifies immediacy, the Stoic practices the art of pause. This is the heart of composure, a mind steady in chaos, unmoved by insult, unshaken by the need to defend its ego. This is not a trick, it is transformation. With each step, you are invited to strengthen your spirit in the discipline of calm. Not an empty calm, but one forged in trial, in fire. And so, we begin with the first principle. Chapter 1. Master the moment before it begins. Before every reaction there is a space, a narrow, fleeting silence between trigger and response. Most people rush past it. The Stoic does not. The Stoic treats this space as sacred, because here lies choice, and choice is everything. Discipline begins with awareness. You cannot direct what you do not notice. This is why the Stoics train themselves to slow down, to catch the mind before it leaps. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, return to yourself. When insulted, criticized, or surprised, the instinct is to act. But the Stoic's instinct is to observe, to ask, what am I feeling? Where does it come from? Is this urgent or simply loud? Is it worth the peace I'm about to spend? These are not the questions of weakness. They are the commands of self-command. To respond as a general does in battle, aware of the stakes, attentive to timing, patient with strategy, not with panic, but with poise. This pause before the storm holds immense power. It is not just delay, it is decision. It is the quiet place where the future bends toward wisdom or regret. It is the unseen battlefield where character is either forged or surrendered. Most will never see it. They rush through, driven by habit and pride, blind to the fact that this moment was everything. But the Stoic learns. This space is freedom, and within it, destiny is shaped. This moment is not just an emotional checkpoint. It is a discipline of the spirit. It is the proving ground of your philosophy, the stage where all your reflections, readings, and intentions must finally become practice. Anyone can speak of principles when life is calm, but in the silence between stimulus and response, you are given the true test. Can you embody what you believe? To pause here is to claim sovereignty over yourself. It is to reject the illusion that your conduct must mirror your circumstances. It is to affirm that you are not a servant of the environment, not a reed bending with every gust of wind. Your mood, your actions, your choices, these are yours to govern. Your behavior does not belong to external agitation. It flows from internal alignment. Yet the world around us urges the opposite. It glorifies speed. It praises noise. It rewards instant replies, sharp retorts, and public displays of anger. It teaches you to react quickly, to guard ego, to never let a word pass unanswered. The Stoic sees the snare in this. Reaction is simple. Mastery is rare. The first impulse is almost always unpolished, tangled in pride or fear. Stillness, on the other hand, signals strength. It shows you are not dragged by the moment, but rooted in something deeper. Stillness is not weakness, it is self-respect. It is the quiet refusal to betray yourself for the sake of another's approval, the choice not to exchange your clarity for someone else's chaos. Practice catching that space. Sit in it as a warrior might sharpen a blade, not in haste to strike, but preparing with patience and precision. Do not rush to flee discomfort. Observe it. Do not recoil from tension. Study it. Few ever learn this strength, to let unease linger in the air without scrambling to silence it. Let it rest. Let it breathe. Allow it to reveal the places within you still in need of discipline. This is endurance of the mind. This is where the noise of the world begins to fade and your truer voice begins to rise. Breathe into it. Hold it a little longer each time. 5 seconds. 10. A minute. And eventually, you will no longer measure. You will simply remain steady. This is not delay. It is refinement. It is the space where raw instinct softens and insight begins to take form. In that stillness, clarity emerges. Options once hidden appear. Words you might have regretted lose their hold. You discover that wisdom does not rush forward shouting. It waits. It watches. It chooses. The more you honor this space, the more it shapes you. What begins as pause becomes mastery. What begins as restraint becomes freedom. This is not passivity. It is principled living. What once looked like hesitation becomes discernment. What once seemed like inaction becomes composure. What once felt like silence becomes intention. Here is where character is carved, not in ease, but in the tension between instinct and ideal, when you choose the harder, nobler path. This is where the Stoic dwells, not detached from life, but fully engaged with clarity, not hardened, but disciplined, not aloof, but steady within the world, yet not owned by it, emotionally aware, but not ruled by emotion, anchored, present, composed. Begin your day with presence. Take a few minutes before the first task to grow still. Breathe. Repeat a mantra. I do not serve impulse. Visualize yourself meeting difficulty with calm. Train the mind before the world has the chance to test it. Chapter 2. Stop taking things personally. The Stoic does not demand that the world meet their expectations. They do not assume others share their values, nor do they cling to the belief that life owes them understanding. For most overreactions do not come from what happens, but from the meaning we attach to it. A friend does not reply. You take it as rejection. A stranger is rude. You take it as attack. A family member forgets, and you interpret it as proof of neglect. A colleague overlooks your contribution. You decide you are invisible. These judgments root themselves quickly if left unchecked. But what if it meant nothing? What if it had little or nothing to do with you? This is the freedom of detachment. Not indifference, but independence from emotional turbulence. As Epictetus reminded us, it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. When you release the habit of taking things personally, you stop bleeding from every small cut. You begin to reclaim the strength that was constantly wasted on imagined offenses. You begin to see clearly. Most people are not against you. They are simply caught in their own storms. Their words and actions reflect their inner battles, not a deliberate attempt to wound you. And with that realization, your heart steadies. You no longer need to carry every glance, every silence, every oversight as an assault on your worth. Instead of rushing to defend, you create space to observe. Instead of assuming the worst, you learn to interpret with neutrality, even generosity. Most of what feels personal is not personal. Not every slight is a verdict. Not every disappointment is an insult. In this clarity, you discover freedom, the kind that lifts the constant weight of imagined conflict. This is not weakness, it is strength under control. The quiet confidence of one who knows their energy is too valuable to be squandered on every passing flame. Detachment is not absence, it is strength practiced through awareness, refined by inner work, and proven through lived experience. It does not mean disconnection. It means you are no longer entangled in every passing emotion or provocation. You remain present to life without being pulled apart by it. You still see, feel, and respond, but with intention, not impulse. Detachment is not an excuse for poor behavior, nor is it permission to tolerate mistreatment. It is the art of conserving your energy for what is truly worthy of it. Not every offense requires a defense. Not every conflict deserves your presence. You are not ignoring disrespect. You are choosing not to be ruled by it. You are refusing to hand over your calm to someone else's chaos. You are declining to become a vessel for another's ungoverned emotions. That is not passivity, it is power. The Stoic does not absorb every energy that enters the room. They do not serve as a sponge for every mood and disturbance. They remain grounded in their own being, guarding their emotional ground like a warrior protects sacred land. They do not treat every vibration as a summons. They pause, they weigh, they discern. They respond not to noise, but to truth. When faced with hostility, they do not reflect it back. They measure it. When confronted with immaturity, they do not descend. They stay upright. Their presence becomes a steady contrast in a world driven by reaction. Their peace is not fragile glass to be shattered at the slightest touch. It is a fortress, built with philosophy, tested by hardship, sustained by daily practice. It is not stumbled upon, it is earned. Earned by choosing silence when shouting would be easier, by walking away when ego demands to linger, by rooting worth in who they are rather than in how others treat them. So when something threatens to disturb your calm, ask, is this truly about me? Or is this another storm spilling into my space? Most storms you encounter are not yours to weather. Most fires you notice were never lit for you. What feels like attack is often turbulence someone else has not learned to master. Learn to distinguish what belongs to you from what is merely projection. Learn to separate what requires response from what deserves only silence. This is not withdrawal from life. It is wise participation in it. It is learning to treat your peace as the rare resource it is. It is learning to move through chaos without carrying it. When you begin to live this way, your vision sharpens. You start to notice where your attention is most easily hijacked, and you reclaim it before it is spent. The more calmly you can stand in the presence of another's storm, the more you understand. You are not their stormkeeper. You can acknowledge without absorbing, witness without internalizing, care without collapsing. This shift does more than prevent overreaction. It refines discernment, strengthens spirit, and frees your path from the weight of other people's chaos. It grants the rare power to walk away without guilt, to remain silent when silence is strength, and to preserve your energy for higher purposes. You begin to move differently, less hurried, less shaken, more rooted, more free. Emotional wounds land less often, and when they do, they heal more quickly. Its peace becomes your choice, not as escape, but as alignment. You release the chase for control over others and deepen the control within yourself. In a world that overreacts as habit, your composure becomes your distinction. One way to build this composure is through reinterpretation. When something frustrates or offends you, pause and imagine 3 alternative explanations that do not place you at the center. Perhaps they acted from exhaustion, from pressure you cannot see, or from wounds they have not yet named. Ask what other stories might be true. Could this be a misunderstanding, a rushed judgment, a reflection of their own inner turmoil unrelated to you? These questions are not just exercises of thought. They are practices of compassion and strength. They train the mind to look beyond itself, to remember that every person carries unseen context. Every sharp word has a backstory. Every cold response has a root. Every harsh tone is tied to struggles beyond your view. Replace assumption with curiosity. Trade suspicion for possibility. The habit of asking, what else could be true, becomes the bridge between fragility and fortitude. Gradually, the inner voice that interprets everything as personal, that leaps to conclusions and clings to offense, begins to quiet. In its place grows a steadier voice, one that observes before it judges, one that seeks to understand rather than accuse. You will feel this shift in your body as much as in your thoughts. Fewer sudden spikes, less racing of the heart, fewer flares of wounded pride. Instead, space begins to open between feeling and response, and it is within that space that strength resides. This practice dissolves ego, expands empathy, and builds a form of resilience that does not crumble under misunderstanding. You no longer depend on constant affirmation or defense, because your worth is anchored in something more stable than reputation. Self-awareness. In time, this discipline teaches you to live not in reaction, but in awareness, not in defense of identity, but in service of clarity. It becomes a kind of emotional agility, the ability to bend without breaking, to stand firm without hardening. This is where composure is born, in a mind that no longer rushes to judgment but waits, listens, and searches patiently for understanding. Chapter 3. Learn the art of delay. Few things are more stoic than the pause. The pause is a fortress. It is the choice to withhold reaction until reason has entered the room. In that space, judgment ripens. What could have been a spark of conflict dies quietly in silence, rather than spreading into wildfire. Seneca warned that anger feeds on speed. He wrote that the surest cure for rage is delay, and he was right. Time changes the shape of feeling. Emotions cool. New information appears. Perspective returns. What once felt urgent begins to lose its urgency. What looked like betrayal may reveal itself as simple miscommunication. This is not avoidance, it is refinement. The filtering of emotion through the lens of reason. It is the deliberate slowing of the inner tide so that clarity can rise to the surface. The Stoic understands that time is not retreat, but movement toward accuracy. Time is not an enemy of truth, but its clarifier. It tempers raw emotion with sober thought. It distinguishes what truly matters from what merely shouted for attention in the heat of the moment. Many things that roar at first encounter with time reduce to whispers. The wise response is rarely the first one. It is the response that survives the test of time, polished by thought, balanced by perspective, strengthened by restraint. This is the ability to feel deeply, yet still wait before acting. Delaying reaction does not mean abandoning action. It is not passivity or apathy. It is anchoring your actions in clarity, refusing to act simply to relieve discomfort. It is the strength to hold the line when every impulse wants to rush forward. It is the choice of substance over spectacle, calm over chaos. It is the trade of temporary release for enduring wisdom. This is the discipline of emotional restraint, a pause, a breath, a moment to remember who you are before you decide what to do. It is in that space that integrity is preserved and regret is prevented. It is where the higher self is given room to speak before wounds can take the lead. The pause transforms reaction into response. It turns raw impulse into principled action. It turns survival into elevation. Make it a rule never to respond to emotionally charged situations immediately. That moment of pause is not weakness, it is wisdom. See emotional triggers not as commands to strike, but as invitations to step back. Each trigger becomes a chance to practice self-command. Give yourself a window, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, even a full day if needed. The length of time is less important than the intention behind it. What matters is that you pause long enough for reason to take its seat at the table. Let the pause become a sacred buffer between stimulus and reaction, between the noise of the moment and the clarity that follows. It is in that space that composure returns. Here, emotion loosens its grip and values take their place again. Distance from chaos restores connection to principle. When speaking with someone directly, do not hesitate to express your need for time. Say it simply, calmly. I need time to reflect on this. Or, let me sit with this before I respond. These are not evasions, but signs of strength. They signal that you are not seeking to escalate, but to answer with care. This is not a tactic. It is maturity. It is self-command. It shows that ego does not govern you, that you are committed to intention, not impulse. And often, this calm declaration invites the other person out of their own reactivity, creating space for mutual respect. Stepping back grants both sides the chance to reflect, and many conflicts dissolve in that very pause. Protect your clarity before offering your response. If needed, step away, not as retreat, but as realignment. Breathe, journal, walk, reflect. Return to yourself before you return to the conversation. Let your principles speak louder than your pain. A quick reply often comes from the wound. A measured reply comes from wisdom. With space, your words can be chosen with care, not to punish, not to please, but to express truth with calm precision. This does not weaken your voice. It strengthens it. For words spoken from reflection carry gravity. They cut through confusion. They endure. This is the mark of the Stoic, not silence for its own sake, but the discipline to wait until the right words form. It is the strength to hold steady until the best response is clear. Chapter 4. Understand the nature of others. People will be unkind. They will misunderstand. They will act from impulse, from ego, from wounds they have never addressed. This is not betrayal. It is not even surprise. It is simply human nature. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, the people I meet today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. He did not write this with bitterness, but with readiness. By expecting human flaws, he made himself steady when they appeared. Much of overreaction comes from surprise. We expect too much. We imagine people will be wiser, kinder, more self-aware than they are. We secretly hope they will be thoughtful, fair, and measured, that they will meet us at the level of self-reflection we strive to cultivate. And when they do not, we feel betrayed. But the Stoic does not build expectations on illusions. The Stoic prepares the mind for reality. People are not always acting from clarity. Often they are reacting, just as we sometimes do. And when they fail to meet the image we silently held of them, the sting is not only in their behavior, but in the collapse of that illusion. disappointment, anger, heartbreak. These often arise less from the act itself and more from the shock that it came from someone we believed would do better. But when you understand human nature, the surprise fades. You begin to let go of the expectation that others will always rise to your standards. You stop imagining that wisdom is common, that maturity is widespread, or that emotional awareness is the norm. Instead, you see error as part of the shared human condition. Ego, insecurity, haste, immaturity. These are not rare anomalies. They are ordinary expressions of unexamined inner lives. People speak before they think, act before they understand, and lash out from wounds they do not yet know they carry. In a world full of people still learning, still struggling, still wrestling with their unseen storms, imperfection is not the exception. It is the baseline. So when challenge comes, you are not offended. You are prepared. You expected the test. You braced yourself not with suspicion but with realism. You are not thrown off course when others stumble. You do not treat their failures as a reflection of your worth. You are not pierced by every careless word or irrational act. You have learned to separate their noise from your values. You have built a space within that does not collapse each time another person acts from confusion. You remain steady, not shaken, not because you approve of their behavior, but because you anticipated its possibility. You allowed room for it in your expectations. You accept the fallibility of others just as you accept your own. This is not pessimism. It is strategy. You understood the world would be imperfect, and so you prepared your spirit in advance. When chaos arrives, you are not insulted by its presence. You are activated by your training. Your peace does not depend on outer perfection. Your balance is not outsourced to the behavior of others. You anchor yourself in principle, not circumstance. This is the Stoic advantage. Not cynicism but readiness. Not cold detachment but emotional wisdom. Not a demand for perfection, but preparation for imperfection. You choose to meet disorder with order, not outrage. To bring reason where others bring noise. You carry calm into the room without performance or pretense, not by withdrawing from the moment, but by lifting it. You become a source of stillness, not because the world is quiet, but because you have trained yourself to remain unshaken within the storm. You hold your ground, not from pride, but from practice. You are not here to prove yourself. You are here to honor the inner order you've built with discipline and time. You do not need to win every exchange or control every perception. Your task is simpler, but greater, to safeguard your integrity, rooted in something deeper than tone, tension, or turbulence. You carry yourself with dignity, even when dignity is denied to you. This grounding allows you to listen without being baited, to observe without absorbing, to engage without being consumed. You remain whole even when others unravel. Your wholeness does not depend on outer calm, but on inner alignment. From that place of strength, you offer something rare to the world. Composure in the midst of chaos. It is not dramatic, yet it is powerful. It does not shout, yet it leaves an impression. Such presence becomes a quiet teacher, a living reminder that self-command is the highest command, that one can stand in the fire and not be burned by it. This is the mark of a Stoic, not perfection, but peace, not withdrawal, but resolve. Each morning, prepare your mind. Remind yourself of the behavior you may encounter, rudeness, selfishness, forgetfulness. Say to yourself, I expect this, and I will meet it with composure. This simple rehearsal strengthens your emotional immunity. Chapter 5. Remember what you control. All of Stoicism rests on a single truth. There are things within your control and things beyond it. Peace depends on knowing the difference. Forget this, and you will be swept into frustration, trying to change others, force outcomes, or resist reality itself. Remember it, and you become steady. Your sphere of power is small but absolute. Your thoughts, your choices, your values. Everything else is outside your command. As Epictetus wrote, some things are up to us, and some things are not. This is not just a mental note, it is a foundation for freedom. The one who forgets this boundary lives in turmoil, forever fighting the world to fit their private wishes. They suffer over what cannot be altered, argue with reality, and drain themselves chasing what lies beyond their reach. But the one who honors this truth walks in calm. They are not passive. They are precise. They do not withdraw from life. They engage where they are most effective. Their energy is conserved because it is not wasted on the impossible. Their peace is steady because it rests not on outcomes, but on effort. Their strength is inward, and because of that, it cannot be taken. You cannot command traffic, but you can command your breath. And within a single breath lives patience, clarity, and presence. You cannot control another's tone, but you can control your response, whether you mirror their agitation or rise above it with composure. You cannot secure every outcome, but you can govern your effort, your preparation, your consistency. These are not small forms of control. They are the foundation of greatness. The Stoic does not aim to master the world. They aim to master themselves within it. That is the only mastery that endures. When stress weighs heavy, take up a simple practice. Draw 2 columns. In one, write what is within your control. In the other, what is not. Then return your energy only to the first column. This realigns your focus and dissolves reactivity. Chapter 6. Train the voice within. The dialogue you keep with yourself shapes the way you meet the world. Every outward reaction begins as an inward word. If that inner voice is frantic, fearful, or unstable, calm will not follow. But if it is steady, rational, and measured, even disruption will not undo you. The Stoics taught that philosophy begins in the mind. What you allow your thoughts to repeat, you allow your life to reflect. That is why the practice of shaping your inner voice is essential. When provoked, listen carefully. Does your mind exaggerate? Does it condemn? Does it spiral into fear? Or does it pause and ask, what is this to me? Is this within my power? Wisdom begins in these questions. This voice is not formed by accident. It is built through discipline, reflection, and consistent attention. Left unattended, the inner voice defaults to habit and history. It repeats old wounds, inherited fears, and the noise of the crowd. It becomes a liability, critical, anxious, unstable. But when you take responsibility for it, when you decide what it is allowed to say and believe, it becomes your greatest ally. You begin to hear a steady tone, calm, clear, rational. A voice that questions rather than reacts, that guides rather than agitates. A voice that reminds you who you are when the world tempts you to forget. This is the quiet commander behind every composed response. The more you strengthen this inner leadership, the more your outer presence reflects it. Your voice within must be the voice of reason, not rage, of clarity, not confusion, of patience, not panic. It should challenge your impulses instead of indulging them. It should ask, is this mine to carry? Before you accept the weight of pain that was never yours. It should ask, what is within my control, before you chase what lies beyond your reach. And like any skill, this voice strengthens through practice. You must test it, train it, refine it. You must hold it to a higher standard than impulse demands. Over time, it becomes second nature, not an effort, but a foundation. This is the source of a Stoic's calm. Not luck, not numbness, but an inner voice sharpened into strength. When strong emotion arises, write it down as if it was someone else speaking to you. Then respond as a Stoic philosopher would. Is this judgment rational? What would Marcus say to this fear? This trains the inner voice to lead, not follow. Chapter 7. Anchor yourself in daily discipline. Emotional control is not summoned in crisis. It is cultivated in routine. The person who loses their temper easily has often neglected the quiet disciplines that build resilience. The Stoic does not wait for pressure to grow. They train daily through structure, repetition, and deliberate living. Each morning offers a chance to prepare the mind, a quiet battle before the world has even spoken. Here, the direction of your day is claimed with intention or surrendered to randomness. Each evening provides a chance to review, to learn from missteps and victories, to reinforce the internal compass. This rhythm is more than habit. It is armor. Armor not of steel, but of structure. Repeated daily, these practices become the architecture of inner strength. Morning reflection, journaling, mindful movement, intentional silence. These are not luxuries. They are essential. They are the foundation of restraint. These small practices act as early warning systems, catching reactivity before it becomes regret. They ground you before the noise of the day scatters your attention. They remind you of your values before temptation tests them. They shape your thoughts before the world tries to reshape them for you. A single quiet moment in the morning can protect you from hours of turmoil later. When your days are scattered, your reactions will follow. When your schedule is reactive, your emotions mirror it. When your mind is left unchecked, it becomes vulnerable to every disturbance, every email, every comment, every delay. But when you return again and again to what you value, what you aim for, what you choose, difficulty no longer shakes you. You do not flinch. You do not panic. You have rehearsed these moments. You know how to breathe under pressure because you have practiced breathing when it was easy. You know how to focus because you have trained focus daily in the quiet margins of life. This is what separates the composed from the reactive. Not personality, not luck. Practice, consistency, ritual. By showing up for yourself each day, you build a foundation that holds no matter how unpredictable the world becomes. Discipline is not something you reach for only in the storm. It is something you install before the weather changes. It is the quiet, proactive work of inner construction, the steady effort to ensure that when emotion strikes, your foundation holds. The Stoic prepares their posture long before the world gives them a reason to lose it. They train for adversity in stillness, so they are not caught off guard in chaos. They anticipate disruption and meet it with steadiness, not bravado, but rehearsed resilience. They do not rely on luck. They do not wait for favorable conditions. They do not hope for serenity. They build it. They construct it, day by day, often in invisible ways. Waking early when it would be easier to linger in bed, reflecting when distraction calls, responding calmly when lashing out, would be simpler. One sunrise at a time, one choice at a time, one act of discipline repeated until it becomes identity. And once it becomes identity, it is no longer something you perform. It is how you move, think, and respond. It becomes the atmosphere of your behavior, the default of your actions. It becomes how you breathe under pressure and how you stand when others collapse. This is how calm becomes character, not by avoidance, but through deliberate shaping of the self. This is how resilience becomes reflex, not by avoiding hardship, but by learning to bend without breaking. Again and again, discipline stops being effort and becomes nature. It becomes the part of you that speaks first when challenge arrives, and the part that remains last when everything else falls away. It becomes your edge, your root, your rhythm. Composure no longer needs to be chased. It walks with you. Build a daily ritual that reinforces stillness. Make your morning a sanctuary, not a sprint. Begin with journaling. Write what you fear, what you aim to master, and who you intend to be. Let this simple act train your focus like a muscle. End the day with reflection. Review your responses, note what stirred you, and consider how to return stronger tomorrow. Anchor your mind in honesty and growth. Create small, repeated practices. Walking in silence instead of reaching for noise. Pausing before meals to reflect instead of scrolling mindlessly. Limiting distractions not just from devices, but from conversations and environments that provoke reactivity. Turn the ordinary into sacred habit. These rituals are not mere structure. They are resistance against disorder. Each quiet act is rebellion against the world's addiction to urgency. Each moment strengthens your emotional core. Each ritual fortifies your mental posture. The aim is not perfection. It is preparation. And you are training yourself to return to your center faster, to catch yourself sooner, to move through the day as someone who leads their inner life rather than serves their impulses. That is the essence of stillness, not the absence of noise, but the refusal to be controlled by it. The Stoic does not hope for an easy world. They prepare for a turbulent one. They do not expect calm seas. They train the soul for the storm, not to live in fear, but to rise above it, not to avoid emotion, but to guide it with discipline and dignity. Each principle you have read here is a stone in the foundation of living strength. This is strength that speaks without words, felt in the way you carry yourself, in sitting silently without needing to dominate, in meeting conflict without losing your center. It is invisible to the eye, yet undeniable in presence. To never overreact is not indifference. It is intelligence in action. It is the art of conserving your energy, not of suppressing feeling, but of choosing what deserves your response and what is beneath your disturbance. Every reaction costs something. Every choice shapes your character. Every choice is a vote for who you are becoming. You are not required to entertain every insult. You are not obliged to meet chaos with chaos or immaturity with intensity. You can choose another way. You can study your environment instead of echoing its volatility. The Stoics lived this way, not as distant philosophers on scrolls, but as real men navigating war, betrayal, exile, and the unpredictable tides of life. They practiced what they taught, and so can you. Every day is another opportunity to hold the line, to stay still when the world shakes, to choose pause instead of panic, thought instead of reflex, wisdom instead of noise, to speak when truth demands it, and to remain silent when noise only invites more noise. Over time, that calm becomes your nature, not forced, not fragile, but forged through repetition, through daily choices that declare, I will not be moved by every shadow, through a mindset that no longer chases validation, but lives in alignment. In a world addicted to reaction, where attention is currency and outrage is trend, that calm becomes its own quiet revolution. A revolution not waged with slogans or noise, but with stillness, with strength, and with a soul that refuses to be conquered.